Hi, and welcome to the Five Spheres of Fit. I am Sabrina, the president of the Five Spheres, and I'm here with Noel, the founder and creative director. The Five Spheres is a holistic lifestyle strategy that constantly evolves with you. The five spheres are the physical, the mental, the financial, the social, and the educational spheres. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm excited for this one.
Okay, tell me, what are we talking about today?
So we've covered a lot of topics so far, and I think today I wanted to talk about imbalance.
Okay.
And we talk about the importance and interplay of our five spheres in life and what happens when one sphere, Sabrina, becomes so dominant over the other four that you become what we'd call imbalance. Now, I do want to say this to our audience, and that is there are times when you'll get imbalance because of a particular event is happening or a thing where you've got to give special or additional amounts of attention to get that thing done, right? So maybe it's a specific task that you got to focus for 3 weeks and get it done to the detriment of others, but recognizing the need to come back. So,
Okay. So keeping that in mind the entire time.
Be mindful of that. Recognize that you're in a point of imbalance. Understand also how that feels. I think a lot of people take for granted that as life sort of comes to them, they'll just go. They don't really have a plan of how they're going to sort of continue keeping that balance, focusing on these other important areas of life because they're so hyper-focused. We mostly see it with work, right? To the detriment of others. It's like work, 24/7, 365. That's the most important detail. We call that financial sphere, right? And so what's happening in those other spheres? So today I really want to talk about some of our personal events that have happened that have kind of pulled us out of a balanced life.
Okay.
And maybe kind of be a little bit vulnerable and talk about how maybe we came back and let the audience kind of see how that works and how we were thinking about our five spheres all along. So it did allow us to kind of rebalance and address some of the things that maybe we were neglecting because we were so hyper-focused in one area.
All right. So where would you like to start?
Well, maybe we could talk and maybe you could open the floor with an example that you've kind of dealt with because we've been talking about this lately.
Yeah.
And kind of maybe how you're feeling. I think people can learn best when they see others kind of going through it. And then what was their thought process? Like, how did it affect you? Because then maybe they identify with that.
Okay. So you had mentioned earlier this topic and you had said this fitness journey I've been on as I've gotten older. I'm 48 now. I'm in my late 40s, and perimenopause has, been
I'm not laughing.
A major issue and a challenge that I've been gaining weight. And so I talked to a nutrition expert on Instagram. Her name is Nikita Sharma. And we started talking about my macros. And I found that counting my macros, I was already working out. So that component was not a challenge for me. For me, it was, I can eat healthy, but I was learning how to eat and how much to eat. So lo and behold, I found out that I wasn't eating enough, right? Yeah. Now I'm eating more. I'm eating enough to fuel my body. And the challenge has been, for me, this has actually helped me physically and mentally. The challenge has been socially because now I don't want to go out to eat. And it's summertime and we are fortunate enough to be able to take these really nice trips. But it's giving me anxiety because I don't want to eat bad. And even when we were here, we have good friends of ours and it was his birthday and we went to Eddie V's. So that day I said, I am going to get on my Fitness Pal, which is amazing if you don't use it and you're looking to count calories or count macros. And I started putting in even things like scallops or the shrimp. And the fat content was so high because of all the butter. And I was just like, I can't eat any of this. And so I was able to find something I can eat based on my macros. Yeah. Everyone's macros are different. Yeah. So thank you for everyone's macro count is different. And it depends on what you want to do, right? Mine is lose fat, gain muscle. And so I was like, nope, this is too high. I can't do this. But I was able to find that. But what if you are on vacation, with family or friends and you stop at a restaurant and you don't have time to pre-plan?
Yeah.
Right. And you don't want to, that gives you that anxiety and that's affecting your mental sphere.
Right. So let's talk about that. So we have a couple trips coming up. I know that you take the time because you're a little bit more forward thinking when it comes to well, not a little bit, a lot of it forward thinking about what restaurants are available
Mm-hmm.
and what kind of eating schedule do you want to have, so that you're not caught in a situation where, my God, I'm hangry. I just get anything I can find. And then you go through those emotions of, okay, now I feel guilty because I got off my plan. I
Mm-hmm.
didn't follow it. And then, maybe there's a little bit of anger about that, or disappointment, or sadness, or whatever that
Yeah,
emotion is. I'm not
that's
speaking
affecting my
for
mental
you.
sphere.
But I
Absolutely.
think that all of those things, they factor in. So that obviously is taking you from your physical sphere right deeply into your mental sphere.
Mm-hmm.
But you're taking the time to sort of figure those things out. So I think that's really important. I think that's
Yeah.
one of the things you've done. Also, what about, so you talked about the way you're structuring your eating now, recognizing that you need to eat a certain way. Can you talk a little bit about how like cultural norms and maybe societal norms are things that you kind of fight a little bit? Because you had said, I wasn't used to eating like this, because you're thinking of, oh, weight loss, well, don't eat. You're
Yeah.
really active, and the science will tell you that if you don't eat, you're going to create a problem for yourself. Can you talk a
Yeah.
little bit about kind of how you've adjusted to that? Because that's an educational sphere, that's a mental
Absolutely.
sphere, that's
So
social
when
sphere.
when I first spoke to her via Zoom and I met her, she said, how do what's your, on an average day, tell me how you eat. And so I was explaining it to her. And the first thing she said was, I don't think you're eating enough.
Right,
And I
right. I
thought,
remember
this
that.
woman, yeah. And I think I said it on a previous episode. I said, this woman's crazy. But then I started doing my own research
Yeah.
and I was like, yep,
Yep.
she's right. I mean, my metabolism has slowed down so much because I'm not giving
Yep.
it the proper nutrients, right? The
Right.
fuel that it needs. And so, but in my culture, right? Or even societal norms say, calories, lower your calories.
Yeah.
You need to be at a
Lower
caloric
caloric intake,
deficit,
right?
right?
Yes.
But what is that for your body? It's different for every person,
Right.
right? You
Right.
need to find out what it is, what your caloric intake should be for you. And so I I mean, I was at like 1100 calories and I was so
Yeah.
tired. And then obviously that's affecting my hormones even more. And so that educational component is it's so necessary to know what you need for your body, your age, because I was just hurting myself. And a good friend of ours, the ones we went to Eddie V's with, I was talking to her about it and she's like, I remember you were eating so little. And then I said I would come over to your house and she always makes this amazing spread and I would binge because I'm like, food, wine, like, let me eat. I'm so hungry, And so then it was like counterproductive to what I was trying to do for my body.
Well, yeah, and I'll say that, having gone on this journey to some extent with you, at least learning about what your priorities were and how you wanted to effectuate them in your daily lifestyle, I saw you really learning about who you were as a person, and what started to matter most for you was you have this goal that you've now put into place. You recognize that you're going to be fighting some of these cultural and societal norms of how you're eating, but that the value of what the end result will be, which is reaching your goal, number one, but also the way you'll feel. Like you were so focused on that you've just kind of driven through this. And it's not, I see it still, it's obviously a challenge for you. And I know that there are moments when
but
you
it's
haven't
not
planned.
as much.
Yeah.
It's actually easier when I'm at home.
Right.
So that's why it's
Right.
affected my social sphere because I don't want to go out
Yeah.
with people.
Yeah.
I'm like, can I just hit my goal and then I will come see you,
Well, this kind of takes me into another direction. Well, let me finish that thought. And that was to say that I think because your focus has been so great, like you're going to see the fruits of this labor. And I think a lot of people out there who struggle with like diets, which I think are crazy. I think the whole concept of I'm on a diet is ridiculous. And the reason I say it's ridiculous is because it's not set up for you for the long term. It's usually do this for 3 weeks,
quick and
6
fast.
weeks. I need to lose 5 pounds. Those are not sustainable goals for life existence longer than that period. They really aren't. And I think if people are honest with themselves, they recognize it. What I think you have figured out is, and I think the audience should know this too, like you are constantly training. You're not going to just go exercise and whatever, like you're actually training for a better you. And I think that's important to look at whatever routine you want to follow, make it part of your life, because then you're training Sabrina Scott to be a better Sabrina Scott the next day. And so when you do things like miss a workout or have to figure out a new workout because maybe we're staying at a hotel or we're traveling somewhere where there's no weights and stuff that you typically use in our garage. You have figured those things out. And that's important because you're not losing sight of who you want to be. And I think you've done a great job at this in managing a lot of these challenges, both mentally, socially, taking on the educational sphere and just kind of making that all happen together.
Right. Thank you. I do want to talk about cultural norms. Majority of Indian women over the age of 50 think what is beautiful is skinny, not muscular and fit. My idea or my journey, my mindset in this journey is to be fit and healthy.
Right.
And that means I need to have muscle. I need to be strong. And so where this also affects my mental sphere is getting on the scale. And because I just started this journey about, 5-6 weeks ago, the scale hasn't moved much. But what I did do, which is exciting, is take pictures in my sports bra and, my workout pants. And Nikita has seen them and she's like, I notice a difference. And I'm like, are you sure? Are you sure? Because
I need to, this is a critical element.
So that's like, that's finding happiness in my physical and mental sphere. And then also gives me that leeway in the social sphere. Okay, I am seeing some progress, right?
Evidence is something that you should see. We should all be looking for that. There is and I don't know if it's on our site, but I can post it again. I always tell people out there, regardless of the sphere, but we're talking about physical sphere right now, is you want to have an equity plan. Everything you engage in should have an equity plan, something that you will get in return that's sustainable, not necessarily tangible, obviously, but something that creates value for you. Is it a personal growth? Does it sort of fill your bucket for a growth mindset? Does it satiate something in another sphere that just makes you feel better about yourself? And I think, to your credit and to what you've done and challenged here, is this is not just simply a fitness journey. It's much greater than that. And I think what's allowed you to stay so focused is because you are going back to all your spheres and you are checking in and you are recognizing the challenges and sometimes just acknowledging it. Like, hey, this is really hard for me because of what's kind of unfolding, but still allowing that to exist, but not to deter you from keeping going. And so I think it's really great. I want the audience to recognize that when you set a goal, sometimes it's going to be more challenging than you initially expect. But if you look at the 5 spheres and you look at your goal and you look at the impact and interplay that it's going to have on all your 5 spheres, I think it becomes that much more, I don't want to say easy, but more easily digested.
Yes,
like you understand what you're going to be getting into, and that might allow you to be more successful in accomplishing the goal. And not only that, resetting goals along the way. I can think of, for myself and friends who've been at the gym where, remember we used to try to PR, right? Or get a personal record in some sort of movement or lift or whatever the case may be. And once we got that, it was like, wow, we're honoring the process. We're following this process. We're finding success. Ooh, now I have a new goal because I met that personal record. And you just keep going and going and going. And there's
having a plan,
something addictive
being
about
patient
that.
too.
There's something really addictive about that. So, kudos to you, because I know this has been quite the journey. This is obviously something that Sabrina and I have talked about and dealt with, for the better part of 20 plus years. I mean, our entire lives have always been about, betterment in some fashion or another. 5 spheres.
I think that's where 5 spheres.
Sure. Yeah. It just became the platform after seeing all of the things that people go through, whether it was clients of ours through our business, whether it was friends, family, people at our gyms or other businesses, our retail businesses, people that we would meet and talk to us. And it's so gratifying to be a source of knowledge. It makes me want to be better for the people who might possibly ask me questions down the road. And now you're having these amazing experiences on your journey to be able to share that with people and let them see, like, you're not limited by anything but yourself. Just have a plan like 5 spheres.
I feel like you need to have a plan like the 5 spheres and stay the course.
Yeah.
If you can do that, be patient, be strong, stay the course, you can accomplish it. And I am so confident in myself that I will reach my fitness goals in this journey. And of course, I'm human. So some days I'm be like, I don't want to work out or I want pizza.
I want that pizza.
Yeah. It's okay to have little hiccups, but stay the course.
It's part of the journey.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's with anything. And that, if I can say, that takes me to an example, we had also discussed in this topic is we have a tax business.
Right.
It is our primary source of income. So January through April is that busy time. And for the most part, well, I'm usually going to one office. You are going to several offices. So tell me how you find you're focused on that financial sphere from January through April. You know that you are sacrificing balance in the other spheres. Tell me how you manage that, how you even feel about that, because you know you have to do it.
So it's 2025. We launched this business 16 years ago now. So we're in our 16th year of doing this. And as we've grown in this business and we've gathered more locations, we are now at 6 locations. And so to your point, what that does is it pulls me in lots of different directions geographically because they're not all close, right? So the overnight trips and things of that nature, those have been definitely trying on the body now at my age now, where I do a lot more driving. I'm constantly thinking. So the challenges there permeate certainly into all 5 spheres. And I think the plan of action that I had was I had this plan of action and I recognized immediately that I am going to my detriment, I'm going to wind up neglecting the very things that I think really help me get through my days, like do things like working out, spending time with you and Naima, doing all of my side educational stuff. I love to read and learn new things all the time. And I love to keep notes on my phone and do all that kind of stuff and just be a better person, be a better citizen. So I think when I'm going through all that, Sabrina, I thought to myself, I need to be organized. I need to say to myself, it's okay that you're going to neglect this, but have a plan to readdress it. And then in those moments that I have, maybe instead of going out to dinner after a work day, knowing that I'm going to stay overnight, maybe go do a workout.
Yeah.
Which for the first time I did that. And, I'm waking up at like 5 a.m. and then driving a couple 100 miles, working all day. So sometimes working out is not the first thing that comes to mind, but I recognize that for my health, for my mental health, not even my physical health, but for my mental health, I needed that. I needed that decompression that happens when you work out. And we've talked about the science behind that and the release of endorphins and things of that nature. But it truly was something that makes me happy. And but to change focus a little bit, like the working out for me helps me just function. It truly helps me function. And so anytime I'm out in the garage, I'm doing that. I'm doing a lot of that mental decompression. So tax season for me is challenging in my mental sphere because I can't address the physical sphere. This was the first year that driving that far consistently, because I would do it Tuesday, Wednesday, and then Saturday again, my back started to hurt a little bit. And that never happened. I don't deal with any injuries. I don't have that issue. So that was really kind of stressful. So, physically, mentally, financially, I put that at the forefront because, as you said, this is our primary source of income. It's so important, so important, but also allows us to kind of just go in cruise control from May to December.
Yeah.
And I'm very thankful for that, but I know I have to work my butt off to make sure that happens. And I only think about you and Naima during that time because that's who I'm taking care of.
Yeah.
So I'm so driven and focused because of you two that I feel like I'm okay. But that definitely keeps us focused in our financial sphere. But of course, we have this startup, we have our properties and so forth. So there are other things that I'm going to neglect a little bit as well. So that's happening in the financial sphere. Then, permanent to social sphere. I mean, I see in no one. I mean, aside from the clients that I see,
busy.
I see a lot of clients. And that, interestingly enough, that's helped our business be more successful because I use the time I have with those clients at the desk as my social interactions. Yeah. I always say, everyone in our business, they always get my cell phone number and I tell them, if you ever need anything, call me, let me know. And that's helped us kind of build that sort of trust relationship. But it's that opportunity to build our business. I'm just thinking like, my God, I don't get to talk to anyone. So I'll just talk to this client. And now all of a sudden, some of these clients have become kind of like friends. I try to keep that business relationship, but I'm addressing the social sphere the best that I can. But it's not the same where I can't see you or I can't see Naima or I can't see some of our close friends, even some of our family. But then going into the educational sphere, I'm focused in on the taxes and solely taxes because that's what I'm being asked to do, basically all day, every day for 3.5 months. But I'm also recognizing that I'm neglecting some of my free reading and some of the things that keep me balanced. So I'll try as much as I can to do that. it just doesn't happen as much. But when tax season ends, that's when I go full boat on all the other four spheres. And I just get so dialed into
But the
that.
point is that you know this time of your life is coming up.
Yes.
And so you set yourself up for success in that sphere, knowing that the other four spheres are going to take a back seat.
Yes.
And
100%.
that's what I think people need to know from this example here, and even my example, that you are focused on one sphere. So if you have to not, let's even use the word neglect a little bit, the other spheres, that's okay.
Yep.
But have a plan to come back to it. He does come back after the 4 months to the other four spheres and refocuses on them. But he goes in with that mindset.
I'm
and
laughing
then
because we were talking about, when he neglects his physical sphere. And I was like, I mean, a little bit I am, but I still feel okay. But
well, thank goodness for that, right?
Yeah.
But then that's affecting you mentally.
Yeah. Oh no, it does. I think the competitive nature in me is something that, and this is not competitive with anyone. This is competitive with Noel yesterday, or Noel 3 months ago. Is I am so driven to want to just be better, and especially as I get older, because I'm surrounded at times by folks in my age group who complain. And so when I think about that, I'm like, oh, bad this, bad that, or this is not working. And I think, no, we want to have a positive mindset. So I almost take on some of that negativity and I wear it. And I'm like, I want to put more positivity in the universe. I want to put that positive, good vibe energy, And that to me is like, that's awesome. Like I love to be able to do that, especially if it's not only for me, but for other people who might take some inspiration from that. Life is hard.
I wanted to say too, with going into tax season, you have the knowledge that tax season's coming up, but in life, challenges arise that we don't know. I mean, I could get a phone call and I have a new challenge in my life. Right. And so what we want people to know is when that challenge, maybe it's a financial issue that comes up. When an issue comes up, a challenge comes up in one sphere, you have to have a plan and consider how that affects the other four spheres. Take that into account. You did that, but going in with a plan. You knew the 4 months were coming up, right? I do that knowing, we take my fitness journey into account. I know, there's a chance we're going to go to a restaurant. I don't want to go out with people. Let me hit my goal. So I have a plan already. But what happens when a challenge arises that you did not foresee? Right.
I'd like to say something about that, because I do think, I feel that the way people are in the world is that those who are most effective, one of the things that they do really well is they anticipate. And they anticipate what could possibly go wrong, what could possibly go well, just anticipation in general. I think, and I harken back to the great Bill Belichick of the New England Patriots, one of the things that made him such an effective coach is he could always anticipate what would happen. And a lot of times people would say, prognosticators and sports folks would say, Bill Belichick seems to always be playing chess when everyone's playing checkers. He's always one step ahead. He's always, however they want to suggest it. And I've always felt that what made him so effective is that attention to detail. And so if you can anticipate, especially in your life, you kind of know what impacts you, right? Like you kind of know what's going on in your world. You want to call, I was going to say bubble, but in your world, think about those things. If you have elderly parents, things that could happen to them, and kind of anticipating those things and being prepared for that on some level. If you've got children who are in school, versus like adult children, and you're anticipating some things, maybe troubles with schoolwork or a boyfriend, girlfriend, or a bully or something like that. Like just being aware of those things so that if life comes at you, you're not just like, oh my God, I had no idea that this could happen.
But that can happen also.
It can also happen. Yes. But to my point, it's important to be thinking about those things, to be present in your mind about not just you and what's affecting you and your 5 spheres, but if you are in a role as a caretaker, as a parent, whatever that role may be.
Yes,
like
yes.
You're considering
in those situations.
And the ability to anticipate the possibilities of stuff. I think that takes
and how it affects each of your spheres.
I think it takes some of the weight off.
Yeah.
And I think there's a real truth to that. I think it makes some people incredibly, incredibly successful and effective in just living life. So, when we first started this particular podcast, we wanted to talk about imbalance and sort of falling into a place of imbalance. Sometimes we choose it voluntarily, like I do in tax season, but understanding kind of what's going to happen and anticipating that and preparing for it. and knowing that you have some sort of plan to come out of it eventually, because maybe it's a limited time frame that you're in, but recognizing that. And you can anticipate those things, and anything else is really just an excuse. Well, why did it do it? Well, I didn't plan. I didn't. You chose that
You
path.
chose not to plan
You
also.
chose, right? Fail to plan, or is a plan to fail.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
So all of those things are so germane. Like just like having that sense, like being resilient, and obviously having confidence and anticipating, and all these things that we've talked about in five spheres. They're so important to create that, to bring that balance back,
Yeah.
and to know that you can do it. Don't beat yourself up if you have a challenge all of a sudden, or if you know challenges are coming. Don't beat yourself up. Oh, I can't believe I have this challenge again. That's just life. That's your life, and you can be prepared for that. Five Spheres is a platform in which to launch you into the. So
I love it. I love it. That was great. Great advice.
appreciate that. Yeah,
Yeah.
this is a fun one. I like that.
Yeah.
I like helping people try to figure stuff out. It can be overwhelming, but it doesn't need to be.
It can be overwhelming, but doesn't need to be.
Right.
I agree with you. Yes.
Awesome.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing. And we'd love to hear from anyone that has comments when we post this. So please share with us. And we look forward to seeing you on our next episode. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks for watching.